Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jeff. My name is Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by Sambo and Johnny. How are we, Chaparoonies?
Right,
Not too bad.
ticked off the mildly offensive accent in record time.
Yep.
So I think we're off to a good
Well done.
start.
Oh no, it didn't make you angry that I said that, did it, Sam? Did it make you angry?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Don't put words in my mouth, all right?
Always a pleasure to be joined by Bob Catter on our podcast recording sessions. We have a lot to get into tonight, quite a bit to get into. The main bulk of it is the recap of Geelong's AFLW defeat at the hands of the West Coast Eagles in round 10. It's a very disappointing one. It means the end of Geelong's hopes of playing finals this season. That is what we're going to get into here on the public part of the show across the next half hour. Then we're going to pivot over to Patreon. We'll keep chopping up the game. We'll talk about the players who stood out to us and did other stuff good too. Sambo, I know we talked about potentially doing the exercise of re-ranking our favourite AFLW cats, which might be a nice bright spot to do this evening on the Patreon, given it was such a disappointing loss. But there are still players doing good things out there for the Cats, and we love watching them play. So, yeah, extended stuff on Patreon. If you want to get a load of that, you know where you can go. Start your 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. Chaps, before we jump into the show proper, we've got to say a big Hoops Crew Media Network thank you to our Media Network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. You can visit them at Shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. You can phone them on 035 222 222 or visit them at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. And if you use the voucher code GOCATS at checkout, they will knock 20% off your next purchase. Great time. It's always a good time to buy flowers, especially in spring. Everything's bursting into life, except Geelong's AFLW finals hopes. But you can celebrate the time that is spring with a floral arrangement and knock 20% off by using the voucher Go Cats at checkout with Cyril Cook Florist. All right, let's jump in. There's no point dilly-dallying, chaps. We've just got to jump in and rip the Band-Aid. This game was a crucial one for Geelong. They had to have it if they wanted to play finals. They were travelling over to Sullivan Logistics Stadium. I mean, far from us to talk about stadium names, given what Kidinia Park currently goes as. But, between Mineral Resources Park and Sullivan Logistics Stadium in Perth, it just really conjures evocative images. Romantic football grounds, both of them. The Cats, it did not start as badly as it would finish. The West Coast Eagles, they scored the only goal of the first quarter to take a 1-3-9-3 behinds lead over the Cats at the first break. From there, things started to get very dangerous for Geelong. They conceded the opening 2 goals of the second term to fall behind by the best part of 3 scores. The Cats got a late goal to Zali Friswell to bring that margin back to 14 points at halftime. The Eagles, an inaccurate Eagles team, up 3-6-24 to 1-4-10. Geelong needed to start the second half better than they'd started the first half, and they were unable to as the West Coast Eagles took control of this game. They kicked 3 goals inside the opening 9 minutes of the third term to Lauren Wakefer, Emma Swanson, and Lucia Painter. And that really put the nail in the coffin for Geelong. There would be 2 more goals scored for the game, one to West Coast, shortly followed by one right near the end for Geelong to Chantel Mason, who continues her little patch of goal-scoring form after breaking through with 3 last week. But the wash-up is, chaps, 7-8-50, the West Coast Eagles, 2-7-19, Geelong. This just did not go anywhere near right. This looks like a frustrated team. This looks like a team, chaps, that at times was lost and perhaps outgunned systematically in terms of the tactics and the execution. And they will now not play finals for the second year in a row after making it to within a kick of a grand final in 2023. Sambo, Johnny, I can't remember who I threw to first last week, so whoever's got a salient opening point, jump in.
Can you hear me yet still?
We can hear you, John.
I can hear you.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. My other microphone is not working anymore.
It's just the off season. It's almost a year to the day that I went without a microphone for about 2 months in the off season. Do you remember that? I was just going through our episodes the other day, and I was like, oh, there's all these ones where I sound tinny because I'm recording without a microphone. It's just what happens once the finals are over in the men's for some reason.
Something happens.
I think mine. To be fair, I think mine made it through the W season, but then it failed.
Well, mine's definitely made it through most of the W season until the women's can make finals. So it's just gone. All right, I'm giving up as well.
Mike's like, what's the point if there's no finals on the table? You know?
Yeah. But yeah, it was a disappointing result. And I think the most disappointing part about it was how well West Coast played and how far off the ball the Cats just looked and felt. And you said it during the intro, Jake. They looked like a frustrated, annoyed team. And I reckon they most certainly did look annoyed, frustrated, just uncharacteristically not unified as a team. Like you saw West Coast, they were moving the ball as a team. They were backing each other up throughout this entire game, and the Cats just looked. But they had the patches where they looked really good, and then for most of it, we just couldn't get our hands on it. And when we did, we just looked too disorganized. Just a bit too disorganized, and there's the normal suspects tried to put their best foot forward, but the West Coast knew who they had to shut down, and they shut them down really effectively, so they couldn't have their normal impact, and it just felt like a bit of a really, really frustrating end to a really frustrating season, and it really feels like this team should be so much further ahead of where they are than what they are. And like talented group of players, it just feels like we're missing something. It just feels like there's that one piece missing that the rest of the competition, especially the top tier teams, seem to have figured it out and are really playing some high class games. And hopefully the Cats can work it out and come back better next year and get that missing piece, because if we can't, it's going to be another tough season, and who knows what could happen if this form continues, because players want success, and who knows what could happen if the team can't find that success.
Yeah, we talked about it in the private Chaps chat, Cats, in our text message thread about the importance of, we talk about it with Geelong's men's team, that part of the reason the Cats remain an attractive destination is because they continue to win. Not only are they committed to winning, they continue to win, and that makes them remain an attractive destination. And that's with, full-time, fully paid employees, etc., on the playing field. In the AFLW, this is such a small part of these players' year. We're talking a few months and then most of the year where they're not playing footy, and they are not compensated, obviously, to the level where most of them can do this as a full-time, gig. And there's a lot of other considerations in terms of family and moving interstate. It might be easier for a men's player to move interstate and live because you're getting, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars over the course of your contract. Very, very different equation in the AFLW. Sambo, this was an interesting one. This loss seemed to drive you into a spiritual wilderness. You wandered in a bit of a sporting desert, it sounds like, over the weekend. Like, I'm interested why. Like, you were talking about it in the chat, and you can talk about it with the listeners here. Like, you ended up watching a bunch of AFLW footy this weekend, which, some people might have had the opposite instinct. But what drove you to watch, a bunch of other games this weekend after this loss?
It was a few things. I mean, there was the inevitable crushing reality that I'm not ready to say goodbye to football. And the Cats season clearly will end a couple of weeks early compared to. So there was a bit of a I suppose an exploratory approach to trying to be a team that I'll be able to follow through the finals a little bit. It doesn't necessarily interest me to do that with the men's as much. But I guess I'm just still I still feel so invested in this competition. There's so much there's so much talk around it, around what the quality is, what people players should be paid, what fans should be paying, what venues should be played, how long games should be, and blah, 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 all this stuff. And I guess I don't have a super strong opinion on a lot of that stuff. And I want the league to succeed. And so that was a big driving force of it, of like, I really still want to support this league beyond the end of the Cat season. So I wanted to find some teams to watch. And then there's this, I suppose, masochistic, sick element of just trying to watch to see like what makes these successful teams tick at the moment. And that spilled over and led me into watching some of the old European leg tennis. Of the women variety as well. There's a couple of competitions going on at the moment. There's the Champions League. There's the English Super Cup. There's a few of those. So I watched probably 5 AFLW games, I think, and then another 4 women's soccer games as well over the course of 3 days. Or evening specifically. I only watched them later in the evening, and that was just it was all really interesting. I mean, watching the European football, like the support that is there for the women's competitions over there, like, and I mean that in both sense, like, and I don't mean this to sound judgmental or nasty, but the fans, like the sound of the crowds in the Champions League game, the Women's Champions League game. And they do a similar thing to the AFLW where it looks like they all sit on one side. So they're in the on the broadcast side. So you can't really see many fans, many people in the crowds. But there's these chants. And I actually said to the part, like, is this played on a speaker? Like, is this COVID type? Because I just didn't know what the attitude I see was to the women's game, I suppose. And it wasn't. I actually like, it became very through the podcast because they would occasionally cut to angles from the other side, and it's just they're all condensed in. It was huge. Like, it's the sound, the chants, and the drumming and the cheering and the booing and that stuff from the crowd was huge. So the support on that level was incredible. But the support on the like in terms of just like the support of the game, like the facilities, they weren't all playing in the all playing Wembley sort of thing. They're not necessarily, but they're I guess their level of this is the next available stadium compared to the AFLW's level of this is the next best stadium. It's so different. Like they're sort of like I don't know, it's like the B grade facilities over there. It was I think so. Games in England, watched a game that was played in Italy. Watched another one that was played in Germany. They were just fantastic facilities, not huge, high stadiums, but just so I guess I don't know. They're so rambling. I just felt like it was kind of inspiring. It could be depressing, but it was kind of inspiring to look at it and go, that this is happening. It's like around the world, there is a level of support for it that I think we can get for the W here. But specifically how that relates to the Cats, I think I suppose what you guys were alluding to. I fear a little bit that we could get left behind if we're not pretty pragmatic, I guess is the word I would use. I think it's and there will be because these are professionals behind the scenes. These are people that know a lot more about it than I do. They will be having at the point, whether it has happened now or not, they'll be having frank conversations. And I'll continue to support the Cats every year, watch every game as we do, continue to support about it. But if we're talking about success, I do worry that the league is shooting towards what I witnessed, where that's the trajectory going towards where the European version of it is at. But the individual teams, the clubs are going to need to do a lot of work to keep up with that because they're not just going to be, dragged along, I suppose.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that something that's only come across my radar recently, and it makes a lot of sense, but and none of this is known, at least not to me, but whether it's AFL men's or AFL women's, but I feel like it might be more pronounced in the AFLW, is that just because there's a salary cap, right, does not necessarily mean that every team, every club is spending to that level. And I'm not saying that Geelong isn't, but it's worth putting out there. And this is the same in a lot of sports. It only, as I said, only came across my radar recently watching the NFL. And everyone assumes in the NFL, well, everyone has whatever it is, $200 million a year on their roster. But different levels of ownership and backing don't necessarily have that liquidity to spend all that. There's a percentage that you have to spend. Yeah, and so if there's a percentage you have to spend, and if you don't, I imagine the teams are penalised. But I don't know if that's the same in the AFLW. So I think you're right, Sambo. I do fear, I don't want us to get left behind. And my takeaway from the weekend was thinking back to, so I suppose watching a West Coast Eagles team that had won 12 games in 56 matches prior to Daisy Pearce taking over. She's now won 6 in 10. I think about Carlton, who were really, really going poorly and then changed their coach. And Carlton now look like they might make top 4. And, you have to pull levers. You have to do things because this league will develop quickly. We're already seeing it. North Melbourne have redefined what the bar for success looks like far beyond anything that we could have imagined even Adelaide or Brisbane doing at the height of their powers. The game on the weekend between the Crows and the Roos, Sam, was such a stark reminder of where that gulf is at the moment. Yeah, I am worried. And Johnny, you talked about the one piece that we're missing. I would personally feel like on the weekend, I felt like it wasn't so much a player that we lacked. It was a plan B. It was a plan C. It was a really effective plan A.
Yeah, it definitely is
Yeah.
not. It's definitely not a player that we're missing, because I think we got the players in the right positions. We've got the players, the talent, everything's there. It's just that extra bit that we need, that's missing, that West Coast had on the weekend, where they could play at two different speeds or pressure really well as a team and then break away and support their defenders. And then when they were going in attack, they had attackers in the forward 50 ready to receive the ball and get goals out the back. And you look at, obviously, North Melbourne, they made a top 8 team look like a bottom 4 side on the weekend. So they've got everything sorted out and they know exactly where they are. They've got all the players, they've got the talent, they've got the coaching, the system, everything's there. I feel like, yeah, we're lacking in that one key area of, do we have the right coach in the position at the moment? And looking at it from the outside, it's going to be an interesting off-season for the Cats, because I think people probably most likely be moved on, because, as we said, if it continues, we're going to lose the talent, and then it's going to compound the issue, make it even worse. But yeah, as Sam said, we're still here to support the Cats. We're still here as a Cats podcast. We want the best for this team, and so do they. It's moved beyond the how's good this, we're playing footy, this is amazing. It's moved away from that completely. Now it's, how do we get better to win the grand final? How do we get better to be a contending team? It's not just about, look at them go, they're having a good time playing football. That was season 1. Season 2, maybe even, like, the teams don't even think about that anymore. The players don't think about that. They're thinking about, how do we get better? And you need the coaches, the right people in the right spots to make the better team, to make the system right. And I just feel like the Cats are lacking in that one area. May seem harsh, but I think it's probably the truth.
Well, and I think I just wanted to do a bit of self-correction here, because Daisy Pearce actually took over last season at West Coast. So so it's not just this year. I don't know how I missed that. I totally had a mind blank there. So I've redone that math, that math on the fly. So she's now responsible. If West Coast have 18 wins total in their history, she's now responsible for 10 of them, because they went 4-7 in 11 games last year. They're now 6 and 4 this year. So she's responsible for 10 of the 18 wins that West Coast. So they've won more in her 2 seasons than they had in their previous history. Yeah, Johnny, like, it is harsh. And someone actually tweeted at us, and I don't know if you're watching, whoever it was who tweeted, and they said, I don't think the AFLW is ready for the conversations we might need to have around Dan Lowther. And I said, well, look, and I know people are touchy about all this stuff, and I think that the AFLW sits in this interesting position as a developing professional league where people feel that they can't critique and they can't have the same sorts of conversations about players or coaches. And my pushback to it, or my offering to them, was, I think the league only gets better with feedback and critique and analysis, thoughtful, not abusive, because neither the men's or the women's game needs abusive feedback. But no. I think from people who watch the games regularly, people who are invested in the success of the league and their team, we have to be able to have conversations about it, whether that's a player or a coach. And I think right now, I think there is a question mark, because we would all look at the team and say it is very talented. Is there, is there a plan in place that can move Geelong back to where we feel they should be? Because it's, look, go back to the GWS game, chaps, or go back to the Richmond game, games that we ended up winning comfortably. There were patches of those games where those teams actually probably looked better drilled than we did. I don't think they're as talented in terms of their list, but there were times where they actually played better team football than us. And I think that has been a massive thing this year for the Cats, is that the team footy hasn't been there. We've got as good a top six as anyone. We talked about it. Aisling Maloney, Prasparkas, Amy McDonald, Claudia Gunjaka, Nina Morrison, Michaela Bowen. We've got an amazing top level of talent. But I do think we lack a system that helps accentuate the strengths and perhaps hide or ease the weaknesses of the rest of the list. Because let's face it, the whole list isn't as talented as each other. That's just not how sports work. You have your top end talent, you have your mid tier, and then you have a lot of people who are still, skilled and talented in their own right, but are playing other roles. They're playing smaller roles. They're playing complementary roles. And I don't think we've put those players necessarily in the best position to succeed this year. And I mean, we wanted to do 15 minutes negative and 15 minutes positive, Chaps. We're almost at half an hour, but one that stands out to me and perhaps, speaks to maybe, look, and this is the thing, maybe the coaching group as it stands can continue to be the coaches, can continue to be the staff, but they may have to undergo their own development this off-season if they are the coaches again in 2026, because we see that from players all the time. They add strings to their bow. But I tell you what, I looked at Rachel Kearns on the weekend and just thought, what we have taken a player who came into the league full of ability, but not full of confidence. And we grew her to a place where she had found a role down back and she was an absolute weapon. And then the last few weeks we've moved her up forward, and I think you can just see week by week, she's trying to do the team thing. I think she is a team player, but I don't think it's been good for her development.
Yeah. I was sort of getting my hopes up that she could have been well suited there after a second go up in the forward line. And then, this game was just like, she's been wasted in that position. And I would also say the same for Kate Kenny. I feel like we absolutely
playing down back
missed Kate Kenny's attack and ability in the midfield. And I thought, why is she playing in the back line? She looked out of all sorts. She looked like she had just started playing the game again. Like she wasn't the same player that she has been all this year. So I think we need to put players back in their original positions for the last two games and see what happens.
A couple of things I guess I will allow is if we're not going to put them in original positions, at least we'll see them in an off season first. They'll get to do this stuff. And they maybe Rachel Kearns had been practicing in the forward line in the off season, and then they only pull the trigger late. So that I could be completely wrong, but what it looks like is she's learning the role for the first time in game time, which is not an ideal way to learn, and it can sort of exacerbate the issues because it's, as you sort of saying, Jack, it's affecting her confidence, because she's basically been thrown back into being a beginner again when the pressure's on. So it's possible that some of these moves might work in the longer term. So I'm not necessarily saying don't do any of it. But right now, it's not working. That's I think as close as you can get to an objective fact. Right now, it's not working.
Yeah.
So either, like you say, John, go back to it, try something else new, or maybe keep chipping away at this, and it will work with a bit more time and practice in it. And the same thing, I suppose, as far as the coaches go. It's hard to know really, and I don't get a strong read off Dan Lowther in interviews and press conferences. It's hard to know if the game plan is wrong or if we're not executing the game plan. Because both, it could be that this coaching group is correct in what they're trying to do, and there's a breakdown between the communication or just the execution of that game plan. And so they're kind of going, this doesn't really look like what we're trying to do. Let's keep practicing it so we can. And then when it looks like we want it to do, we'll know if it works or not. But at the moment, we're not seeing it. And that's one issue. And that's a different issue too. This is our game plan. They're doing it. It's just not working. Do you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Like, I feel like there is a difference there. And again, as far as objective fact goes, if this is the correct game plan, if this is looking correct, and it's just the results are going the way they are, it's close to a fact that it's not working. So we need to try something new. But again, with like with the Rachel Kearns thing, I guess we can't expect to see that thus far this year, because you can't just throw out a game plan. But like you said, Jake, there's game plans, and then there's levels, there's levers, and there's different sort of contingencies you can pull. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in these last few games, because finals are off the cards. Do we see more of the same? If we see more of the same, I suspect this is the game plan, and they're going to try and do it better. And that, in some ways, worries me a little more. But if we see some crazy things happening, and people playing all over the place, and things look different, then we know. I think it's like an early off season. It's an early preseason of going, all right, let's try some different things. Throw some more stuff at the wall and see what we can take into the off season.
Chaps, we do need to move into doing our votes, and like I am gonna we'll just make the show the length it is here. As we said, this is, even if it's just for this week, you should go and sign up for a 7-day free trial to get the full show, because the reality is, if we put 2-hour videos up on YouTube, they don't tend to get watched fully. The Patreon subscribers are the true freaks and sickos who want more than half an hour. So if you want to hear the continuation of this conversation, there's so much to get into. Both the negative and the bright spots that have been across the season. Like, go on over. It literally costs you nothing.
Constructive.
That's right.
Exactly.
Go to the Hoops Crew, start your 7-day free trial, and you'll get the extended show, whether you want video or audio. It's both over there on Patreon. And then you can just cancel after 6 days if you want. But chaps, let's get to votes here for players who stood out to us and did other stuff good too. I'm going to lead off here. I gave 1 vote to Amy McDonald. An imperfect performance from everybody, but I thought she was our 3rd best player. 2 votes to Claudia Gunjaka, 7 marks, 20 touches. Thought she represented herself pretty damn well. And Nina Morrison was the class of the Cats. Like, if you were demonstrating the gap between the 3 vote and the 2 this week, it would be pretty gaping to me from the 3 vote down to 2 votes. I thought she was a cut above. Sambo, where'd you go?
Excuse me. Mine are exactly the same.
No, you were all the same this week.
Johnny? Oh, well, that makes it easy. Well, yeah. It was a brutal week to try and do votes. Yeah, look, it's one of those things. It's really tough, these losses, and right now, what's hardest to me, chaps, and as I said, we'll go and talk about it on Patreon, is just that it feels in such an uncertain place. Like, you can sort of go, oh, it's the execution of, the players, and it's the form. Oh, it's the, coaching or the game plan. We've been left behind. Oh, but what about the injuries that we've had? There's no Chloe Shear, and then the absences of players like Chantel Eamonson, Anna Rose Kennedy leaving. You're putting in very young rucks. There's a lot of young players in this team. Chantel Mason, Emma Kilpatrick, Caitlin Thorne hasn't played a lot of AFLW footy. Like, the list sort of goes on. And so it's hard for me to get a really clear read of exactly what needs to change. But I think it's one we can all agree that this is a super talented group of players. We saw a very similar list go to a prelim final and nearly get to a grand final. And the next 2 seasons have been a downgrade. It has not lived up to the hopes, obviously, of the fans. I'm sure it hasn't lived up to the expectations of the players. So yeah, we'll go and discuss it all in more depth now over on Patreon. So thanks so much for tuning in, guys. hit the subscribe button so you get all the coverage. I think the Chaps and I were discussing, even once Geelong's season ends, we may continue doing just general AFLW finals coverage. I think we all talked about that we were probably pretty comfortable to do that. So even after the next 2 weeks, expect to see pods from us. Yeah, thanks so much for your support. We appreciate it. Go Cats!
Go Cats!